Welcome everyone. Today we have another guide for Diablo 4. I'm quite excited to show you guys the rogue build we have, and this one is about pure damage, with critical damage and also critical hits. What we'll do is, we'll go through the rogue build with level 50 and also 15 Reno, and also we'll go back to the open beta build for level 25. And over here we do have additional information and also theory crafting for using the specialization for the rogue, including combo points, inner sight, and also preparation, which is likely going to give us more cooldown reduction. So as usual, we start our build with a summary of the choices of skills, and over here I'll quickly run you guys down with a lot of stats for the rogue, lots of critical chances and lots of critical damage. So coming over to our notes for the rogue build, I'm calling this one 100% critical chance rogue build, but you know it won't get to 100% because it's a little diminishing in return. Usually if you get over 65% or even 70%, it's really good enough. And ideally, the rogue himself or herself will have a lot of DX. Dexterity will give us more critical chances. So here you can see just from a few of a skill selection, 3 to 15%, 20%, 5 to 10%, 4 to 20%, and also 3 to 9%. We can easily get over 60 or even 70% critical chance. And with a bonus to critical damage, up to 25% here, 15% here, and 40% with a capstone. So we can get over to about, let's say the starting critical chance is 200%. We can get to 280 or even 300% this way with certain items. So briefly going through the skill of choices. For the basic skill, we'll be going for Heartseeker for high critical chance and also high critical rate bonus. For the core skill, we'll go with Barrage. This is because we also have some aspect of power which give us additional barrage shots, and barrage will give us vulnerability and also additional benefits with critical hit. As for agility, we go with Caltrops, and this is a certain trap that gives us more critical chance, and this also allows us to keep a distance against the enemy. For Sabotage, we'll go with Concealment. Again, this gives us bonus movement speed and also a chance of 100% critical after coming out of it. And as for the Imbuement, we'll go with the Shadow Imbuement, which gives us more benefits when we crit. It is optional to go with the Poison as well, but I think the Shadow is more raw damage. And as for the ultimate, we'll go with the Shadow Clone. This is very versatile, because the Shadow Clone will give us additional damage and other benefits. And finally, for the Capstone, we'll definitely go with Precision, because we'll be focused on a range build over here for the rogue, and this will give us additional critical chance and also additional critical damage. Now, because the rogue class have a specialization and it is optional to pick between the combo points, the inner sight, and also the preparation. We'll go through this at the end of the video because those choices can be easily swapped at any time of the combat for the rogue. So you can pick for high damage, more arrows, or we can pick insights for increase of damage. For 4 seconds you have unlimited energy. And finally we can go with preparation, likely give us more, cooldowns and also ability to use more ultimate. So coming over to a rogue build, what you can notice is, over here notice that my Heartseekers I've added up to level 5, because rogue is going to be a class that uses a lot of normal and also basic attack, and having a higher skill level for the basic attack Heartseeker may be beneficial. Now of course, if you don't have enough skill points, it's okay to leave this one level 1 as well, but if you do have more points, this also helps if you're doing a lot of auto attack as well. And you can see here the enhancement for the Heartseeker, we're going to select to increase attack speed when we critical strike, and here we'll increase the critical damage with Heart Strike. And of course the Heartseeker's passive will give us increased critical rate up to 15% for 4 seconds. So going over to the core skill, the core skill we'll be going will be Barrage. One of the reasons I want to go with Barrage is that I want to make use of this particular aspects, which give us another 15% chance of splitting arrows into 2 when they ricochet. And will pretty much guarantee 100% ricochet, so we'll be bouncing arrows non-stop. And having more arrows means we can bounce more of them, right? So as with Barrage, we'll definitely go with level 5 Barrage. And here we'll go with Enhanced Barrage, and also we go with the Advanced Barrage, which give us more ricochet chance, which means once we ricochet, we gain the 20% critical chance. And this one, particular one, the Enhanced Barrage means if we critical strike or if enemy have vulnerability, we'll ricochet. So there will be a lot of ricocheting and you'll be clearing through monsters like really fast. You have a lot of movement speed, you have a lot of mobility, you have lots of AoE damage. And you also have vulnerability, critical chance, and also lots of debuff. Now, some of the useful passives we can see over here, it is optional, and of course, you can go with Shatter Steps. If you have enough critical chances, having a critical strike means you gain a boost of movement speed for 4 seconds. It is optional, of course, this only gives 5% movement speed every skill point. And here, if you're looking for more survivability and also a bit of life recovery, you can go with the 3 stars in Siphoning Strike. So when you're close up to enemies, you'll deal critical hits and this will heal you. But this is again optional. Because we have a little more points over here, we can go with this. But if you find yourself not having enough points, those are optional for sure. Because those are utility and those are for a little bit survival. But ideally, you want to stay away from enemies, and you only heal when you're close up to the enemies. Coming over to the agility section of the rogue, we'll go with the Caltrops, and this is going to be a skill that allows us to leap backwards, and we'll be leaving some traps on the floor. And the ideal for this skill, which is only level 1, is that we get a little disengagement, and also we increase the enemy's damage taken when they're on the traps, and also we increase our critical chance when they're on the traps. And it is likely enemies will be vulnerable against us because we have a lot of vulnerability debuff, and this means we have 5 or 10% critical increase chance against enemies. So there's a lot of increase of critical chance, and we'll be landing critical hits almost every 2 hits, maybe even almost every 1 hit with the passives. Now, one of the essential skills we'll be going for will be Weapon Mastery. For the rogue, this provides a lot of increased damage, critical chance, or damage against vulnerable enemies. And for us, we'll be going with bows and also crossbows. So either you're getting 12% increased damage with vulnerable enemies, or you're getting the 15% increased critical strike damage. And with a high critical rate, this is a pretty much 15% free damage. Now coming to the next part, Sabotage. As for this particular talent tree, we'll be going with Concealment. Concealment will provide us with stealth. This means enemy can't target you directly, and also a boost on movement speed. Also we get Unstoppable. On top of that, when entering Concealment, we'll gain 40 energy, and when coming out of it, we'll guarantee a critical hit. So this is a pretty flexible skill. The only downside is it has a 20-second cooldown, so it's more like a survival skill. It's like a get out of jail free card. Now over here we have some really interesting passives, and for Explored, you will deal 18% increased damage against healthy and also injured enemies. If you have seen our previous term description video, so this means when enemy is above 80% HP for healthy, when enemies are below 35% HP for the injured enemies. This is a really good point, because most of the time your enemies will fall into those categories. And as for Malice, you'll deal 9% increased damage to vulnerable enemies. Very soon you're going to see we have debuffs to vulnerability, and this will be the focus of the build, to get enemy vulnerable to critical hit and also do more damage with critical strike. So coming over here to Imbuement. As to Imbuement, we're going with a Shadow Imbuement for a little high damage and also more AoE potential, and increase more damage with the shadow damage. Over here we'll went with level 5 with Shadow Imbuement, but if you want you can lower this level as well. As for the Shadow Imbuement, what's going to be nice is we'll have chance of creating mini explosions, which ideally will be giving enemies vulnerability. And this is a prime focus of the Shadow Imbuement for me, because a lot of my build want vulnerability. And now over here, if I do go with the critical chance of increasing poison damage, it is nice for the poison damage, but it doesn't provide me with a stable source of vulnerability. So I prefer to go with the Shadow Imbuement over here, just for the vulnerability, because lots of the perks, the codex, and also passives revolve around this. Now because the Shadow Imbuement is every 9 seconds, I also want to get more shadow damage done, and this is why I'm going for more of the passives over here with Potency, followed by the Precision Imbuement, means the Imbue skill gains the increase of critical strike chance, and also the Imbue skill have more potency. But ultimately I really wanted this, so it is a lucky hit for 15% chance to randomly equip Imbuement skill effect when dealing direct damage. So that means when you are dealing damage without the Shadow Imbuement, when this skill is on cooldown, you still have a 15% chance of doing shadow damage. And I do believe this also applies when the explosions are applied to enemies, you might be giving enemies vulnerability. So this is my goal, to provide as much vulnerability as we can for the increase of 20% damage with vulnerability and also with the debuff. Now of course, if in practice this doesn't work out the way I was hoping for, so let's say if the vulnerability is not triggered with the lucky shot, then I might remove those perks, because this is taking up about 7 points over here for the skill points. And finally, coming over to the ultimate. Now, Because we're a range build, I might be thinking about going with Ring of Arrows, but with all the beta testers reflections, this skill is not that strong. In comparison, Shadow Clone will mimic all of your actions for 15 seconds, and this is very powerful. Initially you'll do 60% of the clone will do 60% of your damage, and then you become unstoppable after casting the clone, and then the clone will do another 20% of your damage. This pretty much deals, almost double your damage for the next 15 seconds, and this is going to be very powerful. I do have some spare points over here. I went with 2 points of Aftermath. This gives me more energy to cast more spells and also core spells, dealing more damage. I could go with level 3 for the 75, but I was using the points for the other things, so I think I just went with 2 points for this one. It is definitely optional, and we can test it out how much energy we need. Now over here, we also have some really nice passives. So after 1 point in Adrenaline Rush, we can get Impetus. Impetus means that after moving 15 meters, the next attack will deal 21% increased damage. If we're rapidly moving with a lot of bonus movement speed, and later you're going to see when we critical hit, we gain movement speed. So with this particular skill, we're moving a lot, we clear out a lot of mobs, we're constantly getting the 21% increased damage. And then followed by that with haste. So that means when we have more energy, we'll have more movement speed. When we have less energy, we have more attack speed to gain energy with base attack. Now as for the Capstone, we'll be going with Precision. This is the classic one for the range class. So we gain critical strike every hit, and every 4% critical strike we gained, we're up to 20%. And once you reach maximum precision at 20%, you will have a 100% guarantee to crit, and then your critical hit also deals 40% more damage. This does consume the stack, but we have a lot of attack speed, and also we have a lot of critical hit. So it's like almost 3 or 4 hits will be guaranteed to crit. And on top of all the critical bonus, this will provide us with more damage. Now coming over to the Codex of Power and also some of my choices. Now do keep in mind guys, you don't have to pick all of them. I'm highlighting some of those which can be very useful for the build. Now initially, 2 of the Codex I usually pick for the defensive is going to be the Disobedience and also Aspect of Might. So those 2 are very standard for most of my build. So we won't have to talk about this much. The new one will be the Aspect of Siphon Protection. So when you hit enemies with your core skill, you might get a barrier at 20% chance, and this can absorb damage. Now as for Rogue, it is quite hard to get barriers, and this could be a really good defensive skill if you're using your core skill a lot, and getting a barrier means you take less damage and more defensive. Now there is a lot of offensive aspects for the Rogue. We all have to talk about the first 2 because usually most classes will go with the first 2. You gain damage when you have the full resource, and also your basic skill will give your core skill more damage. This is especially good for the Rogue because you do a lot of basic skills. Over here we also have the increase of basic skill attack speed, which is also really good for the Rogue. Now the major focus of our build will be on the aspect of branching volleys. This is when the Barrage core skill will have a 15% to split into 2 arrows whenever they ricochet. And we know that we almost have a 100% ricochet chance with vulnerability and also critical hit strikes. When that happens, they will ricochet. So this almost guarantees we split arrows every 15% chance, and this will be a lot more with more enemies. And finally, we also have the Vengeful aspects. Because we're putting enemies on vulnerability, we will gain additional critical chance up to 9% at a 30% trigger rate. I know there's a lot of chances, but when you're constantly debuffing enemies, this one's not bad. Now in terms of resource, we do have another vulnerability enemy resource. So when enemies are vulnerable, and by killing them, we'll gain increased energy regeneration. I do think this falls under the build, and this falls under the Shadow Imbuement, which will be debuffing enemies with more vulnerability. I didn't pick any of the utility skills because I don't think they're that massive, to be honest. And of course for mobility, I definitely recommend Wind Striker. This one's definitely made for the Rogue. So every time you critical hit, you'll gain movement speed, and the duration can be extended. So this means you are almost constantly enjoying at least 8% bonus movement speed, because we have over 60% critical chance, right? So this one's really good. Now as for the specialization, I'll recommend trying out the combo points and see how much damage you can deal with Barrage, and because this is going to be the center of our build. And getting 3 points of combo points means we can go 60% damage and also 8 arrows with the bonus damage. As for the inner side, I do think this will require us to do more basic attacks and also to gain the gauge. And once you have the gauge again, you will be doing more damage with Barrage. So it is comparing if you do more damage with combo points or if you do more damage with inner sight. And finally with preparation. I do recommend going with preparation once you get the chance. This only unlocks at level 30, but at level 30, once you unlock this, having the preparation means that you have a chance of casting more shadow clones, because you can see the shadow clones have 60-second cooldown, and I think the hints over here, so the hints you can say over here, is that one of the achievements in the game says Rogue Preparation, use your ultimate 3 times in 60 seconds as Rogue. So what that means is, it is hinting that you can use your ultimate multiple times with this passive. Exactly how, maybe you'll be doing more damage to enemies, and once you get to a certain mark, maybe every 20 seconds, you can cast your ultimate again. And if you can do the achievement, that means you can cast your ultimate 3 times in 60 seconds, and this will be extremely powerful. So powerful to the point that I might go with another point in this ride, another point in the Aftermath, just because it's really powerful. So let me know what you guys think about the 3 specialization. Because they're flexible, you can pick them at any time, you test out the damage with each of those, and whatever works for the build, you go with it. And because this build has flexibility with all of those specialization, you can test them out for yourself. Now before we finish, let's quickly have a look at the rogue build for the open beta for level 25. So a lot of similarities, let me try to have a look. So a lot of similarities, so we'll go with level 1 Heartseeker, just because we don't have enough skill points. We'll be going with level 5 Barrage, and this is just like the previous build, but less skill points for passives. And over here we'll go with level 1 Caltrops, and also its passives and also upgrades. What I also want to do is I want to allocate 3 points into weapon mastery, and this will give us a lot of stat boost for using bows and also crossbows. Over here we'll be going with level 1 concealment, and also we'll take advantage of those skills over here with exploit and also malice. You don't have to go with the 1 point in malice, but you need the point to get to the next part anyways. And finally, I might be thinking of skipping the shadow imbuement, but if I do, I don't have to. So what I mean by that is, so I'll quickly show you guys over here. So for the imbuement, I might get to level 28. So once you're level 28, with 3 renoms from the first region, so I'm saying that you will be level 25, and your last skill points will come from the renoms. And this way you can get to level 28. This way you can pick an imbuement of choice and then follow up with a shadow clone. It is again a little short on skill points for this build, simply because we'll be stuck on level 25. But ideally, the core idea flows from the previous build. And let's see how we go when the open beta comes out. I'm hoping that we do enough AoE damage. The only downside is we may be short on damage with single target damage against the boss. And because a lot of the rogues passives and also increased damage is kinda on the Capstone and also on other passives, it is a little harder to, I guess, to deal the most damage when you are only level 25. I think this is also the concern with most of the build in the open beta when we're testing it. Now before you go, and if you guys didn't know, we have a new YouTube channel. So I just started a YouTube channel with my girlfriend yesterday, and you can see this is only 12 hours old, this YouTube channel. And if you guys haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe and check out the behind the scenes and also fun clips and also more stories about us. And then you get to know me a little more personally instead of just reading the news and also the games, right? So I want to share a little bit more with you guys. So make sure you check this channel out if you're interested about Matt and also Uni. She's really funny too, and she's really shy. So I want to give her a surprise and do a shout out for the new channel to get some subscribers. Thank you guys. I'll see you guys next time.